Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm your host, Stephen Henderson. It's almost time for the annual Movement Festival at Detroit's Hart Plaza. More than 115 electronic music artists are going to take over the stage on Memorial Day weekend. Meanwhile, plans are underway for the creation of a museum that will preserve and celebrate Detroit's really important legacy as the birthplace of techno and hip-hop culture. It's called the Museum of Detroit Electronic Music. Joining me now is the museum's founder and executive director, Adriel Thornton. Welcome back to American Black Journal.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we are getting ready for movement. We were talking before about just how this is not an event like other events in the city where it happens in a place and you got to go to that place to be part of it. Movement now takes over the city and almost the region in terms of where people are and what they're doing and who's hosting what and what you can do. I mean, it's 4 or 5 days now of just fun.
Yeah, I mean, it really starts the week of.
Yeah.
Movement is the Memorial Day weekend. That Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But it is definitely, starting way before that, with the events and showcases and parties, from basically Monday through, from that Monday, the week before.
The next Monday, right?
Yeah, you can't book a place.
Yeah.
There's programming all over the city. So it is actually really quite incredible.
Yeah, yeah. When you think about the origins of movement, of course, I think you have to think about the origins of techno. They kind of moved together through our history here. But in 2026, I'm always curious, sort of what people think about what that means now, and maybe how it's different than it was when you and I were young men. This was starting. It does feel different in many ways.
Yeah, I think that one of the things is, when you really look back down at the sort of origins of it, I was a kid, and my older cousins and brother and stuff were really that group of young black high school kids who were really the ones who really adopted this first.
Yeah.
And who were listening to it. I remember hearing my older cousins listening to this what was called progressive at the time.
Right.
And also on the radio, you had the Electrified Mojo, and then later on the Wizard, aka Jeff Mills, who were starting to play this stuff, but also on the scene,
right,
on WGPR, and then later the New Dance Show. But then that was really inner city black music.
Yes.
And that's what you heard at backyard barbecues or someone's basement party. And again, it wasn't really necessarily defined as techno at that point, but it was just some get down music, right? But you really think about it, it's really odd in a sense that like this music that was, inspired by like Kraftwerk and George Clinton and the whole Parliament Funkadelic thing and Prince was really, what shouldn't have worked here, really did.
Yeah.
I'm actually happen to be friends with Ralph Hooter from Kraftwerk, and he actually told me, it's like, we did not set out to make dance music.
Yeah.
They were just playing with synthesizers and drum machines.
Noise.
Yeah, right? They were just making noise, and they were like shocked when, Mojo started playing it. And then there was this city in the US who was like just all about it and like dancing to it and making it happen. And that was Detroit.
Yeah.
So it was a kind of an anomaly, but thank God, right?
Yeah. And those roots, because now it's so much bigger, right? It's everywhere. It literally is all over the world. But those roots are important, and that's what you're trying to, I think, really celebrate and commemorate in the idea of this museum, and that's really important to us here.
Exactly. So the idea that this musical genre that was created here by African American teenagers has impacted the world in ways that we still are trying to process.
Right.
You go other places in the world, and Detroit is literally a genre of Detroit techno is a genre of music.
Right.
You go in a record store, there's a Detroit techno section, and we are now, 40 years later, recognizing that we need to capture stories, we need to highlight folks, we need to make sure that we as a city are protecting that legacy while paying homage to what's happening now, and then preparing for the future, right? So the Museum of Detroit Electronic Music, aka Modem, seeks to do all of that, right? We want to make sure that we honor and preserve the history. There's a lot of people still in this city who don't necessarily know that Detroit was created here,
we did
or that techno was created here, and that the branches of those roots have seeped through all electronic music. So, our impact on hip hop even, when you talk about a producer like Jay Dilla, one of his electronic music songs, one of his techno songs called Plastic Dreams, was like huge around the world, right? Like one of the biggest songs ever, right? But he was also one of the most revered hip hop producers on the planet. His mentor and the person who taught him what to do was Amp Fittler, who also crossed those lines, right? So that's why, for me, it was important to say that it was electronic music, so that we could cover all of that.
We can get everything.
We could get everything. And so it really, really is important, I think, to have a physical institution, a physical place where DPS students can come and see pictures and learn history and say, oh my God, those people look like me.
And this happened where I'm growing up.
And it happened, this guy was from my neighborhood. And so I could potentially do that too. Certainly folks like, Juan Atkins, Rick Davis, when they created Cybertron, were not doing it to have a legacy 40 years later. They were just being
creative. You never think about that. You're just thinking about, hey, this sounds interesting.
And it was a creative outlet.
I can make this noise go with this other noise.
Exactly.
Now I got a beat. And, I mean, it's an incredible sort of genre in terms of the creative force behind it.
100%. These cats were quite a few were, at least at the beginning, were actually really trained musicians. Playing bass or guitar or drums. And when this new technology came out, this was like, oh wait, let's play around with this. They still had the musical know-how, but really wanted to try to interpret it a little differently. So they really were experimenting and creating something that really they didn't have a basis for, right? This was like they wanted to sound like somebody else. They were creating something that was really different and new, but that happened to be something that people, especially in their generation, resonated. Right? It resonated with them. And so, I mean, again, when you think about, not a happy accident, I don't want to say it was an accident, but when you really think about like what really happened back then, it was super creative. It was underground. And it was something that, again, I think spoke to the African-American youth in the city of Detroit in a way that other stuff was not.
So we're still looking for a place for the museum, but we've got about a minute left. Talk about timeline.
So starting in June, we're probably going to start our front-facing fundraising campaign online, crowdsource it. We are actively looking for sponsors and foundational support. Actually hoping that the city will support it in ways, but we are looking for a new location. We were part of a project that got canceled or paused. And so we are looking for perhaps a place that is more central, that maybe makes a bit more sense,
There you
right?
go. Should maybe be with the other museums in town.
Yeah,
Makes
that's
sense to
not
me.
that's not a bad idea.
Figure that out. Right. Yeah, Adriel, it's always good to catch up with you. Thanks for being here.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.